Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Today we're packing our bags and deep diving into the travel tech industry, one that saw and continues to see a lot of renewed interest this year. Hence, brands like Cleartrip are pulling out all the stops, several new campaigns, amplifying data-driven marketing techniques, and even refreshing the brand's identity. To know more, we are in conversation with Kunal Dubey, Chief Marketing Officer at Cleartrip. How does a travel brand differentiate itself in a crowded market? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Cleartrip's Kunal Dubey. So Kunal, what are the big differentiators for an e-commerce travel portal?
I think the way I like to divide is, so there are 4 stages of travel as the way I see it, right? There is dream stage, where you're exploring where to go, what to do, the world is so big, what's out there to see. Second is the planning stage, when you lock down to something and you get down to pens to paper, or where you want to travel, the planning stage. Third is the booking stage, when you actually decide which OTA to go to, where to book from. And fourth is a post-booking, which is travel and actually making the trip. I think the differentiators can come in each of these stages. And the respective OTAs of the booking platform can decide where to actually have a right to win in each of these places, right? I think when it comes to us, the way we are thinking right now is for the differentiators, I think the complete virgin space lies between the planning and the booking stage. Most OTAs, in my mind, they are still booking agents right now, right? It's about take my coupon and book. But I think the number of days you take to plan a travel is far more than your actual travel takes place, right? So I think a lot of disruption and differentiation can happen in this place completely.
And it's also fun to plan travel. It's as much fun as traveling.
Actually, you do half the travel when you're just planning itself. You're already there when you're planning, right? So I think a lot of differentiation can happen in the planning stage itself when you help the users to plan better, a lot better. And also, I think the last stage, the post-booking stage, especially because we are in the service industry and not just a booking agent, at least that's how we like to think of it is. So I think the trust and the value perspective of giving the entire experience of post-booking when the travel is actually taking place, how do you create the service gold standards in this era? I think these are the 2 beautiful spaces where a lot of differentiation can actually happen, right? Also because coming from the e-commerce background itself, right? What Flipkart did to e-commerce decades back in terms of differentiation of affordability areas completely, right? Where be the cash on delivery or buy now, pay later, a lot of affordability construct came in, which becomes a completely disrupting norm. Now it's become a BAU for everybody out there. But I think what it did in 2012, 13 onwards, I think OTA has not seen that yet. And I think it's a very nice area to play with. And I think these are the 2 spaces where I feel a lot of differentiation can yet take place in OTA.
Your recent festive campaign was travel more and shop less. When did shopping become the rival to travel?
That's interesting, right? I'll give you a little context of this period first, right? The pre-Diwali period, which is big for e-commerce, right? And we know how the biggies, Amazon, Flipkarts, they go in full mode on that front, right? And the entire conversation in this period is just about e-commerce, about shopping. Having worked on this Big Billion Days event, which is Flipkart's biggest e-commerce sale, and I had the fortunate enough to actually be the part of that entire madness for 4 or 5 years. For me, when I was sitting outside the fence right now with Cleartrip, for me, it was about a little FOMO of sitting outside the fence and just watching the e-commerce have their own fun. The insight was simple for us that, see, in the end, it comes to wallet share. Resources are limited. You have that much money, whether you want to spend A or you want to spend B. So whether you want to spend on a tangible things like your jeans, t-shirts, mobile phones, etc., or you actually want to take the travel. Like the post-COVID world, I think the travel has become a little more meaningful in people's life. It's almost becoming a necessity. In my mind, the way I call it, the travel ideally should be like air, food, water, and then travel. After the basic necessities, travel should be the 4th pillar in the basic necessities front. So if that's a belief you go in with, and if the conversations are already out there because of the dollars that the e-commerce giants are spending, how do we go in and at least make a point, right? People make choices the way they have to in the end, but are you giving enough choices to think about? I think this idea came in there that this is the time when you're spending the most, because in India, we know there are certain pockets where you spend more beyond your means. Diwali period is one aspect. Summer vacation, one aspect. Well, why let travel only with the summer and the winter vacations? If people are spending here right now, and people have holidays as well, why not people do holiday conversation? So actually, that just became the core idea for us, that there's one more option. When you're spending the money, you're going beyond your means, think before you put your money somewhere else.
But Kunal, here's the problem. You're part of you're part of the Flipkart group,
yes,
which essentially tells you to shop more.
Yeah.
Right? Prioritize shopping over everything else.
Yeah.
And as being part of the Flipkart group, you're saying shop less potentially on Flipkart and buy more tickets or book more holidays on Cleartrip.
Absolutely. I don't.
Were you in conflict with the Flipkart management?
No, not at all. In fact, the Flipkart team was very, very happy and excited about this idea in itself, right? we have always given a double thumbs up to ideas that can actually shape conversation in the market. See, brands need narratives and conversations, right? And if this insight is so powerful about it, I think the Flipkart leadership itself, and I presented to them after we went live, that this is what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you will see this coming in. And I think the team was equally excited about we were doing this. And luckily, at the end of this entire festive sale campaigns for both Flipkart and Cleartrip, we both, at both the sides, overachieved their numbers in any which ways. So I think it was a happy moment, not just because we had done our numbers respectively, but also about having a little fun banter within each other. And that's perfectly fine.
You've used multiple celebrity endorsers in your campaign.
Yeah.
Anil Kapoor, Mithila Palkar, Ravi Shastri, Katrina Kaif.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money being spent on celebs.
So
Is it worth it? Is this money worth it?
I have a very different point of view on the usage of celebs in any brand marketing. I was one of the person who a little spoiled the market in Big Billion days when we had signed up for 40 plus celebs in 2018, right? That was my doing in the company at that time. I have always believed the usage of celebs has to be in two parts. Number one, when I look at my overall marketing kitty, it just has to be a very clear ratio of production versus media monies, right? I add the celeb money always in production money itself. And it can't be more than, for example, 25-75 ratio, 25 for production and 70 media, because you need the media monies to go out. Celeb monies, celeb usage of celebs comes in from an ROI perspective in two parts. On the math front, I believe when you use a celeb in an interesting manner to tell a story narrative in a different way, it adds to your media weightages. It's like a 4 spots without the celeb, but there's a 2 stop with the celebs. It always works for you in terms of how attention you get from there. So it adds to the media value itself if you use the right celebs. Even right now, for example, in the recent campaign when we used Vicky and Kat in our campaigns, right? What the media value looks like an ABC, while we have spent exactly the half of that. So media works harder when you have the right celebs along with you. But you have to be very sharp. It's not about the name that you're using. It's more about who has the right brand values and ethos with your brand. Second, how are you using them? What narrative? Is it adding to your narrative or is it just a face adding to your brand? So I think the narrative is very important, how you use the celeb narrative. Secondly, being very, very sure that it adds to your media monies in terms of the impression that you share. And that has always worked, at least for me in my playbooks.
And tell us a little bit about your thinking behind your media mix. What's the rationale?
Especially for OTA, because it's all online. The first mix always starts with online first, right? We use a lot of this first party and the third party data to go online first, all out, both in a mix of performance and brand monies both. Once we have covered the entire gamut on the online front, I use different, at least I tend to use different medias, keeping different objectives. For example, print, for me, personally, I've been a big fan of print, but only when you have a conversation starter topic. It's just not about putting your offers out there. If you don't have a headline to say, don't use print, has been my personal belief, okay. Right? BTL, use it very tactically as a reinforcement to your messages. So my media playbook over the last decade or so has been about, it's called OTS, which is called Opportunity to See. Because today, when we're living in such a cluttered environment in terms of impression being thrown, you open a mobile app and you will see thousands of barrage coming to you, right from, you'll see your ad sandwiched between a cute cat and a random video, for example, right? And your brand is just there. How do you get right on from that perspective? So how many opportunities are you throwing for the users to see? The more the higher number of opportunities, the more brand gets seen. So right from using your own handles to promote it, using the other handles on the internet, using print, using BTLs, specifically to the location, like for travel, I think society messaging, which I used to do maybe, for example, a decade before in old school days of marketing, right? Even now, the moment you see something interesting happening, so it's not just about pasting your messaging in a place somewhere in marketing, but what are you doing with that impression? So historically, I've been a big fan of that every impression matters, especially in the online marketing world. It's not about how many impressions are you serving. I've seen a lot of marketers talking about, oh, we have hit a 1 billion impression, we have done this and that. I think more than that, what are you doing for that impression matters. If you're using print, what are you using print for? Imagine if that was the only impression you had. What would you do at that time? Use that impression for that purpose.
So it's not just a number of impressions, the quality of impression.
Every impression matters. So I always tell my team also that, imagine, for example, if you're doing lift branding, if that's the only money you had, and nothing else in media, how are you going to use that medium? How are you going to work hard for it? Use that impression from that perspective. I mean, imagine if a user doesn't see anything else. Yeah. They're not going to see your ads, hoarding print ad. They just see one impression in the lift. What do you want them to think about your ad at that point in time? So give a value to every impression that is being served and use it accordingly.
You also undertook a recent refresh of your brand identity. Did that pay off?
Brand refresh was not from just purely from an advertising marketing angle. I think this whole journey of Cleartrip 2.0, that's how we call it, right? Because Cleartrip is not a new name in the market. It has been there for over 16 years. And after when the whole acquisition happened by Flipkart on this one, we started questioning because we were starting fresh, right? We had no baggages or anything, right? So we started questioning of which line of business to begin with, right? Which markets to serve, which customers to serve. So we started questioning everything, and we were open to everything. And we also realized that Cleartrip as a name and an identity had a huge value in the market already itself, huge equity. Like when we were just starting the journey at a very small scale, even then our organic share was very, very high, even at that time. So I think the identity change happened first, more of an internal war cry that this is who we are as a Cleartrip 2.0. This is what we'll stand for. So I think you need a facelift just to get the mobilization of the employees also going at that time. So which is why you will see we have not tinkered much around the logos. We have made nice changes which is relevant in today's world. Like small change, you will just see that the tick has just gone out of the box, right? Because the travel should not have boundaries. So why it's in a box, the tick mark. Just cut the box, the tick mark over there. Change a monochromatic in terms of two color logos. We make minor changes with respect to the today's how people on the digital era are seeing a certain brand as, making a little more sharper, but hasn't changed the entire gamut of it because the power on the name exists, the power on the unit exists, and I think, but what we stand for has definitely changed for us.
True to its name, Cleartrip is one of the cleanest user interfaces.
Yes.
And I've been a Cleartrip user for 12, 13, 14 years now. In spite of dramatic increases in bandwidth and in user design paradigms, this one thing hasn't changed much. Why have you stuck with this exact format for your user?
I won't say we have been stuck with this. I would say we're fortunate to have this.
Why did you stay with this exact format?
I think it was a product and design legacy that Cleartrip always had. I understand over the time, a lot of people on the business side can become a little greedy in terms of we want to add this, A, B, C, D, make everything over there. I think as long as your output are clear, like if you measure the conversion rate, simple. If you have 4 or 5 page flows, that one is the home page and you go and see which flights to take, you want to create your itinerary, you want to make payments and you check out with your entire booking flows. I think if you have the right conversion rate going on each pages and it's not dropping off, if it's healthy and it's ahead of the market benchmarks, you're still good.
That's a good index of measurement.
That's an absolute good index because if the user flow, because whenever we have tried to make middle changes, like sometimes we also get greedy, right? Like I want to add a couple of banners here, make it something add here, it'll get more to the users, more information. When we did that, conversion rate drops.
As a user, that pisses me off because all I'm here,
exactly.
I'm here for your clearness
Absolutely.
of your interface.
So you have to listen to your data very carefully and not just go with your own gut feel. I think data tells a lot of stories, right? And something that we have, I think we take a lot of pride in how it's been built. While we'll go aggressive in a lot of other business units as well. But I think one thing we're going to say very, very strong to is about the legacy of its UI, UX and how to keep it clean and more intuitive.
What's the secret of listening to your customer? You just said you need to listen very carefully.
Yes.
What are the CMO secrets of listening to a customer?
I think it's simple. Number one, the stories or listening can come from any aspect. For example, if you're very strong on the internet platforms, which I call it social listening, a lot of threads, for example, where marketing insights come from. They come from not just by hearing what people are talking, not necessarily about travel, in general what they're talking. Suresh is a user of travel versus e-commerce versus anything else. Suresh is one guy. Same as with me, right? So user is same. A lot of people and a lot of brands that I've seen, they get stuck with listening to their own industry. I think they need to expand their horizon of what people are talking, what the pop culture is like, what are the topics they're interested in, how they look at certain things. Second thing, listening to your customers is an own data first. Data is a beautiful storytelling. People take a lot of steps in taking decision based on data. I use data as insights.
Okay.
You decide what you want to do with it.
But data informs your decisions.
Data aids the decision making. Data is not equal to, okay, data is saying let's do this. Okay. I think data is an information that flows in terms of story what the users are telling. If you don't understand that, simple thing habit of pick up the call, talk to few users, understand what's happening. So I think this whole loop, and we encourage, at least in our internally, every person that comes in, how well you know your customers first. Not by just, oh, I know my TG of standard of, this is my age, demographic region. Not that. Understand the nuances. People, there is an emotion side to it as well. If you don't understand the emotion behind the data will not tell you the whole story. So look at the data, form some hypothesis, go behind about what is the emotion behind that action that is happening. I think that's a beautiful narrative in terms of how I approach of listening to your consumers.
And speaking of emotions, how do you make a customer care about a travel portal? Right? I ask you this because I want to book a ticket. I'm not really concerned about the portal. Yes. I'm concerned about the ticket or my holiday or my airline or my business class or my beach, whatever else. How do you make me care about an intermediary?
I think it has to reverse first. How do I ensure I'm caring enough for the users? When you care about the users will respond back. So idea is not different. How do I make users care about my portal, right? I have to ensure, am I caring enough? What their needs are, what they want from me exactly, what they want in travel in general. If I do my hard work enough, the users more or less they respond back very nicely, right? In terms of if you look at this whole thing in today's world, for example,
And it's not a question of opening 3 portals and going to the cheapest fare, is it not that?
starting point, yes. Not going to shy away from that. But unlike other industries, I think OTA specifically, it has not just been price. We have done at least 3-4 rounds of different researches just to have a point, because that's come intuitive, right? I want to book a flight, which is cheapest flight, give me. It's like, that's what I started with. It's a booking agent.
Correct.
Take my coupon, book the flight. But that doesn't happen if you listen to a consumer.
You can't win that game forever.
Absolutely. For example, which is why more than the price itself, I think the value comes in very handy, right? More than value, service comes in very handy. You may book a flight right now. For example, if by any chance there's a change of plan, which happens a lot these days, especially after in the COVID era and the post-COVID era, right? How are you taking care of that? What is the service? If you're booking through my platform, am I taking the ownership of the booking or not? I can very well say it's not my flight.
Yeah.
It's the flight policies.
Yeah.
But you have booked through me. What am I doing there? That's the service part of it. So the price can be the starting point of me to evaluate.
Customers expect you to look after them,
Absolutely.
not the airline, right?
Absolutely. So the price can be the starting point. So it's like the way we call it parity on price, but it's not going to be differentiated ever, right? It will be your affordability, your value, and the service gold standards, which will help you care about the users, and in return, users to respond back to you.
Kunal, your business is unique. It has multiple factors that are completely out of your control.
Yes.
Right? Airline prices, out of your control. Airline quality, out of your control. Currently, the backlog of visas that we're seeing for countries like the US, out of your control.
Yeah.
The holiday experience, the hotel, the resort, completely out of your control. How do you build a brand when almost all the factors that contribute to your brand experience are not in your control?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate one point, which is why I call it, we are in the service industry and not a booking platform. If you're a booking platform, you'll just wipe your hands post-booking, right? And we know we don't control the other part of it, like airlines or hotels and all that. But because they are important part of a value chain itself and partners itself, how do you ensure the last mile of what you can bring to the table in service? But I'll give you a small example. New Year's is going to come in. We all know what happens in New Year's time. A flight with X rupees will go to X plus Y plus Z in these times. And even then, half of the inventory you'll not even find. You'll not find a nice resort also to book at that time, because the prices will be skyrocketed at that time, because the demand is the highest at that time. As a brand, what do you do in this time? Simple, if you just make still travel happen in this time. Small example. If I just tell you that you've never flown a business class, for example, but always had a wish, but can't afford it. If I add a no-cost EMI to your card, pay in 6 months, it's fine. If you want to fly business class, fly. I can control the airfares, or what the business class versus economy, or I can control the prices of now versus the New Year's time. But if I can add the other value constructs around it and still make it possible, flexibility options. We have a product which is called a Flex Max. It's a unique in itself in the industry, which is about, if you just add to your booking, the Flex Max, right? After that, if you want to modify, cancel, any change of plan, the entire money is taken care of already. Okay. So these are the options about, while I can control the other parts and the users understand that, but what additional I bring on the table for the users beyond just the flying in the flight, right? That is, I think, where our job comes in. A, to help in the planning stages, that you're planning better with the right person. And after planning, anything goes wrong, I'm here to have your back. I think that's what we are here for.
And you recently tried to turn travel into an impulse purchase as well in your Bahar Milte Hain campaign. Any learnings from that campaign?
Yeah, that was crazy for us.
Did it work?
It did. It was the same part of the festive campaign itself, right? My two small philosophies in marketing has been very two simple points. It's a very personal thing that comes out. Number one, how can you change a cultural norm or a cultural words into conversation? For example, in this particular case, right? If you have to meet outside, correct? तो पूरे ही बाहर मिलते हैं. मतलब then don't restrict yourself to Bahar as a cafe shop or a mall or something like that. I think that impulse comes in. Okay. And see, the most joys of personal experiences also, right? The travel, I think, has a huge element of impulse into it. Plans are made random. There's a very strong insight that somebody in my team had said that in India, we talk more about travel than we actually travel. Every evening conversation is about travel.
Where to go, what to eat,
what to go next. We have to go here, long weekend coming in, but we don't take the travel. Yeah. So if you're talking so much about travel, but you're not taking the travel, correct? But you're talking. That means there's an element of impulse into it. But we don't end up doing that because the planning is a very tedious thing. So I think we wanted to take care of this aspect. The more, if there can be a world where the more you talk about travel and actual travel can be equalized. You can travel as much as you talk about it. Now that's a beautiful world to live in. Okay. So I think that became the center of this campaign. And again, the job as a marketer is to initiate conversation. And this became a great handle for us to have conversation about travel.
So a few years ago, we heard about ecotourism.
Yes.
And last 2 years, we heard about revenge tourism.
Yes.
What's the next trend in travel?
Actually, there are very micro trends. At least I'm a big fan of micro trend because one larger trend can let you leave a lot of smaller trends inside. So few things, at least which I've been seeing, a very interesting one, which you don't realize often. For example, the weekday leisure travels has been on uptake.
Oh.
The number of people are taking leisure travels on weekdays. Connected to that is number of laptops that people are taking on the leisure travels is also increasing.
That's a strange metric, but okay.
So it is about a accommodation rental, work from anywhere policy, which a lot of companies are adopting. If not even that, if work is 24/7 for most people right now, they just carry. I should not miss out on something else.
Suppose something happens, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are stories just lying there. People carrying laptops on a weekday leisure travels. It's a very weird but very interesting story itself, right? Another interesting one is when you do corporate travels, a lot of people are adding weekends in their corporate travels. They want to, for example, go to a Thursday, Friday and come back on Monday. So they're adding weekend to their cards in their business travels.
So bundling of
It
holidays
used to be
with
around
workdays.
15-16%, I think, in 2018-19, which has become almost above 30% right now. So corporate travel is adding weekend because if I'm traveling to a place, why not extend a couple of more days and have
Call
fun
your
and then
family or whatever.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So people are actually, which is what I'm saying, the air, food, water, travel aspect, people, in my mind, we are getting there. We may not be there right now, but in mindset, people are getting there on those nuances.
All right. Kunal Dubey of Cleartrip, thank you for talking to us at Melt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.